Thank you very much, Anthony, and welcome everybody. I do appreciate you all joining in with us today. If possible, if we could turn our cameras on so that we could see each other, it tends to make the program go a little bit better, and I can kind of get a look at your faces and see if what I'm saying is making your head spin or if you're kind of comprehending what we're going through. So I'll begin with saying that, the financial aid process hopefully is not, one of a scary one or one that causes you a lot of strife. So what I'd like to do today is kind of just give you a general overview of how the financial aid process works here at the university with respect to your programs, and then really open it up to you for questions and see if there's anything out there that we need to address. And again, if it's very detailed or very student specific, we could always take that offline as well. So again, my name is Anthony Naro. I'm with the Wilkes University's Financial Aid Department. And the process for financial aid is again, relatively pretty simple when we're talking about federal financial aid. In order to be eligible for federal financial aid, first and foremost, as a student, you must complete a FAFSA application. And the FAFSA is strictly the free application for federal student aid. It helps the university determine what particular aid you may be eligible for in regards to your programming. And it's important to remember as a graduate student, again, this really isn't complicated on the federal side because there's basically only two types of aid that you would be eligible for. The first thing that we look at and we like to package for our students is the federal unsubsidized student loan, okay? There are certain limits to that loan in regards to overall lifetime borrowing and annual limits, and we can talk about those in a minute. The second type of federal loan that you'd be eligible for would be the Graduate Plus loan. Now, again, we try to maximize your eligibility and utilize the unsubsidized loan first, simply because it has better origination fees and interest rates as opposed to the Grad Plus. But some students do need to utilize that Graduate Plus loan, whether they're at their lifetime aggregate limits or they may have potentially used some of their award year. If, as an example, you may have been enrolled at another institution in the fall and maybe completed that program and used some of your federal aid money for this year already. So we may need to take a look at a couple of different things. But first and foremost, like I said, once you've completed the FAFSA, the first type of federal student loan that we'd be looking at for you would be your graduate unsubsidized loan. In all of this process, again, once you are enrolled in a program and have accepted admittance into that program, if you have completed your FAFSA, our automated processes will pick up your enrollment and your FAFSA information, and we will begin a process called packaging. And essentially what that is placing the students in the appropriate budget or cost of attendance for that particular program. And what do I mean by budget cost of attendance? So every award year, students in a particular group are grouped into these budgets or costs of attendance. So if you are a graduate master's nurse student, you would be in one specific budget. All of your students in that cohort will be in it. The graduate certificate program would be in a different budget. And those budgets are essentially made up of two categories. Okay? There are direct charges, which are charges directly charged to the student by the university. And we know those to be pretty much solid and steady, right? So we have things like tuition fees, things that are actual finite charges for each student in that group. And then there are indirect charges. So things like transportation, books and supplies, living expenses, those are things that are estimated for students in that group, but might not necessarily be exact penny for penny. And when we combine those two categories, the university gets what's called the budget or cost of attendance. And that is the maximum that we could award up to in regards to your funding, whether that be through student loans, other scholarshiping, grants, so on and so forth, okay? On the federal side, unfortunately, the federal Pell Grant and institutional aid, things of that nature in regards to grant scholarships are not available to graduate students. So again, in regards to funding, we're looking at graduate unsubsidized loans, potentially a Graduate Plus loan on the federal side, self-payment plans, 100% full payment by the students, tuition reimmission by employers, or private lending. In regards to private lending, the university does not have a specific or solitary lender that we use. We provide you with a historical list of lenders through the website www.elm, like the tree, select.com. So www.elmselect.com. That would bring you to essentially the private loan website, which again will show you a historical list of lenders that students have used at Wilkes. And you as the student could utilize or choose your preferred lender or a lender that you feel comfortable with using on the private side. Once we begin packaging and processing your aid from a federal standpoint through the FAFSA, that information will be available for you to review on your student portal. The other two components of financial aid would be completing a loan entrance counseling, which is known as the LEC, and a master promissory note, which is known as the MPN, on the website studentaid.gov. Once you complete a FAFSA, the loan entrance counseling and master promissory note, that is our indication here at the university that the students wish to engage and utilize federal Title IV aid. So we will always package our students at their maximum eligible aid with respect to federal funding. The only time you need to contact us as a student in regards to this aid is if you're choosing to use less than your maximum. So as an example, a student may be eligible, I'll just use round numbers, for a $20,000 federal student loan for the award year. And their charges are only, let's say, $5,000 each semester. So they may indicate to us that they don't wish to use that full federal aid eligibility because they don't want to have that extra debt burden. So that would be the only time that you would need to contact our financial aid office to essentially decline your maximum eligibility. Other than that, students will be packaged at their maximum eligibility, and disbursements for that eligibility will be made at the beginning of each semester or each term that the student is eligible. There's a couple other important factors to remember when utilizing federal student aid. And first and foremost, the one important one is to be enrolled at least a half-time status. So for the graduate master's nursing program, doctorate program, it is required that students are enrolled in at least 6 credits each semester to be considered at half-time status and eligible for their federal financial aid. For the grad nurse certificate programs, it's important that you remember you'll need to be enrolled in at least 3 credits per semester to be considered at half-time status. Again, your aid will be packaged every award year based on the FAFSA that you submit. For this particular group coming in January, we're still utilizing 2021-22 FAFSA, and it's important that you have that completed if you wish to utilize federal student aid. The 2022-23 FAFSA application is open at this time, and it is very confusing and sometimes important to remember which FAFSA you're filling out. So in order to be eligible for aid for the current upcoming spring semester and summer semester of 2022, the 2021-22 FAFSA will need to be completed. The 2022-23 FAFSA will cover your fall 22 term, spring 23, and summer 23 terms. So again, I know that is a lot of information. It was intended really to be a brief overview and broad stroke of how financial aid works and some of the key components. What I'd like to do to make this a little bit more interactive and try to get your sense of your comfort level and answer some questions for you is really open it up to the group. So again, if there are any questions, please feel free to raise your hand, take yourself off mute, and ask away. Well, I did such a wonderful job explaining it. No one has any questions. So let me ask, how many out there are intending to utilize federal aid, or if you've gone online already and have seen your award package or have questions?
Jill, good job.
Yes, so as you are packaged and as your award is placed on your student portal, you should receive a brief notification from the office just letting you know that it is out there and eligible for review. Again, another important piece of information that I'd like to pass along as well from our bursar's office is that notion of paying your bill and having financial clearance. And a lot of times students get confused with what does that actually mean? In regards to having financial clearance, the university's policy states that 2 weeks prior to the beginning of courses, you must have financial clearance in order to continue in those courses, or you risk the chance of being deregistered. And again, what that essentially means is that you need to have one of a few things in place. Either number one, you need to have financial aid packaged in order to pay for that bill and have that information complete. Two, be enrolled in a self-payment plan, and students could sign up for payment plans through the student portal. There is one payment plan for the university, and that is on that student portal where you could sign up and they will deduct equal payment amounts each month from your chosen account that you've set up. Have tuition remission or deferment through an employer on file with the bursar's office, or essentially just pay your bill in full, 2 weeks prior to courses beginning. So students could use one of those options, a few of those options together with each other, but that is the policy of the university, is to make sure that you do have financial clearance 2 weeks prior to the beginning of each term. And not having that clearance could hold you up for future course registrations or run the risk of being deregistered for your classes.
Hi, Anthony, this is Kelly. I do get this question. I think it's important to share. So when students do their FAFSA for the January term, which is our spring 2022, when does the next term's financial aid open up for them for the May that goes into the August term? And should they do that now?
Right. So students who are completing the current FAFSA for the year 21-22, your spring and summer terms are covered by that FAFSA. The FAFSA year runs from July 1 of the current year through June 30th of the following year. And any disbursements made within that time frame are covered by that FAFSA. So the disbursements for the spring semester being made in January are covered by the 21-22 FAFSA, and the disbursements made in May are covered by the 21-22 FAFSA. Now, the 2022-23 FAFSA is out there, the application is out there and open, and students could go and complete that at any time now. However, it will not begin to determine eligibility or come into effect until fall 22's term. So that FAFSA would cover fall 22, spring 23, and summer 23. And students that are being packaged right now are being packaged for the spring and summer semester. So the award that you see being offered and packaged, essentially half of that is to cover your spring term. The other half of that award is to cover your upcoming summer term that begins in May.
And they'll get 2 disbursements from that as well.
Correct. Correct. You would get a disbursement in January and then a following disbursement in May. Again, as long as you're enrolled at least half time, you've completed your loan entrance counseling, your master promissory note, and you maintain satisfactory academic progress.
Another question is financial aid related to my income?
So in regards to graduate students, the easy answer really is no. The reason being is that the unsubsidized federal student loan that we are packaging is not an income-based or a need-based type loan. It's strictly based off of the information on the FAFSA demographics and the graduate requirements. In regards to graduate studies, there really, unfortunately, is no eligibility for need-based aid, which would be commensurate with income levels. Typically, when you're talking about need-based aid, you're talking about first-time undergraduates obtaining their first bachelor's degree, or even working towards a second bachelor's degree or certificate on the undergraduate side. Once you become a graduate student and start working towards those post-secondary degrees, the need-based aid usually from, well, mostly from the federal side goes away, and then more than likely from an institutional side. That typically is reserved for their undergraduate students.
And a question came in from Jill. What is the best way to connect with you? Do you prefer appointments, email, call?
Email is usually the easiest way to get a hold of me. And my email is Anthony, ANTHONY .Naro, Naro @wilkes.edu. We are bringing on a new graduate counselor that we will be sharing information with to everybody as well. She had just started, so I'm not trying to bombard her with too many emails just quite yet and phone calls until she kind of gets her feet under her. You're also always more than welcome to call me. My direct line is area code 570-408-3810. I will be honest, I tend to respond a lot quicker to email requests, just simply because a lot of times I'm in meetings or out of the office, and sometimes it's easier for me to answer an email when I'm away from my office than it is for me to, get back to a phone message. So typically email is the quickest and easiest way for me to be able to communicate with you. You could always also email our general financial aid email box, and that is financialaid@wilkes.edu. And if for some reason I'm out of the office or tied up in meetings and our new grad counselor is still in training, there are other financial aid counselors here that do get those emails at the general box and can help answer, basic questions in regards to the graduate aid.
And then one more question that came through privately is, how will I know if I'm missing any additional documents?
Sure. If you don't see aid on your account, or you expected to pay at a certain time, and you haven't seen something, by all means, please reach out to us. But we tend to try to do a pretty good job when we see students are missing documents, preventing their aid from posting or preventing them from being packaged. We do try to reach out to those students individually to let them know specifically what documents they're missing or what may be incorrect. A lot of times you will see also on your student portal that they call them tracking requirements or missing document requirements. So a lot of times, the common ones that we see are proof of citizenship. Sometimes when you complete the FAFSA, the federal government requires us to, ask for proof of citizenship. So you'll get that notice, and simply you would be, sending in a copy of your U.S. passport or naturalization paperwork. Other times you will see tracking requirements on there that are meant to show you what we are still processing. So sometimes you'll see NSLDS limits or student loan limits as a tracking requirement. That is something internally that we are required to check through the federal government to make sure that the aid that we're processing for the student is done so in the proper manner. And you'll see as we go through those and correct those and update them, you'll see those requirements falling off of your requirement list on the student portal.
Another question, can I check in my FAFSA, my financial aid, and what is the SAR report? And do you need my entrance loan and master promissory to have a complete package?
Okay, so there's a couple questions in that question. So in regards to the FAFSA, what the FAFSA does is it essentially helps the institution and the federal government determine the maximum amount of federal aid that a student is eligible for. When you complete that, yes, you get a SAR report or a student aid report, and it tells you what your maximum eligibility is for that particular award year. As a graduate student, most likely what you're going to see is that the SAR report will tell you that you're eligible for up to $20,500 in your federal unsubsidized Stafford loan, because that is the maximum award for the particular award year each year for graduate students. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that an institution could award that maximum award. And what I mean by that is, if you kind of go back to our discussion around budgets and cost of attendance. As an example, for the spring and summer terms for a master's nursing student, your budget cost of attendance is $18,366. Again, that is a combination of your projected tuition and fees based on 6 credits per term, your living expenses, books and supplies, transportation, all those indirect charges, everything added together. So even though as a graduate student, the federal government states that you're eligible for up to $20,500, our institution is only eligible to certify a federal student loan in the maximum amount of $18,366, because anything over that would be considered an over award. We do not need your SAR here at the school. What happens is essentially when you complete a FAFSA, the federal government sends us what's called an ISA report, or an institutional student aid report. And we use that to go ahead and package our students. To answer the final question in regards to having a loan entrance counseling, the LEC, and the master promissory note, the MPN, to be submitted in order for a complete package, the answer is yes. Once you have completed your FAFSA and you complete your LEC and MPN, that enables your eligible aid to post to your account. Without having the LEC and MPN completed, the only thing that is packaged is your eligible aid, and it's just giving you an idea of essentially what could be processed to your account. The aid will not post to your account until an LEC or MPN is complete and on file.
Another question, if I am, not me, if they were an alumni, do students need to let you know that as well for the tuition discount?
Actually, the alumni discount is processed through the bursar's office.
Okay.
So you would need to let the bursar's office, it's not a financial aid award, it's a billing type fund. So that would go through the bursar's office, and they could be reached at billing, BILLING, at wilkes.edu. All very good questions.
I think that's all I have in these private chats. Is there anything else anyone would like to share that I might be missing? Well, this is a fantastic group. This is great.
Yeah, a lot of great questions. Like I said, and again, we you know, if something comes up after the fact, or you weren't comfortable asking something, by all means, please feel free to reach out to, you know, our office, you know, personally, and we'll be happy to answer your question or try to assist.
Anything else? Anthony, we so appreciate your time. It's so helpful for everybody to learn a little bit more about the wonderful world of financial aid and making sure that students can start comfortably.
Sure. Well, it's not so wonderful world, but it's not scary either. So by all means, like I said, if you do need help or assistance, please feel free to reach out to us. As you are completing your FAFSAs, it typically takes about 48 to 72 hours for it to process. And then, excuse me, it takes an additional, you know, 48 to 72 hours once we receive the FAFSA in to get your aid package and start that going. So again, you'll see that out on your student portal. If you have questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to us. If I don't have an opportunity to speak with you, I hope you all have a nice holiday and a very successful spring semester.
Actually, another question just came in. Is there a
Sure.
deadline to complete the FAFSA?
So you know, and that's a funny question because the answer is yes, but it's also no. And that's one thing you'll find in financial aid. Typically the answer is it depends. So as long as you complete your FAFSA prior to June of this year, you would still be eligible to have aid processed and pay to accounts. However, if you keep in mind the university policy that we want to have financial clearance 2 weeks prior to the start of the term, you'll want to complete that as soon as possible if you intend on using federal aid for your upcoming spring term, as we are getting closer to that start date of January 18th, I believe.
And another one came in. With regards to book vouchers, can I use my financial aid for my books?
Yes. So if you are intending, and this kind of is a two-part answer, if you're intending on utilizing your aid to cover your books through the university bookstore online, you can request a book voucher as long as you have approved financial aid on your account. and you could request that book voucher through the student portal. And then you would essentially be charged through the university bookstore for those books. However, if you are intending to use, website ABC to buy your books, you would purchase those on your own essentially first, and then you would use your credit balance from your federal aid that gets sent back to you after the disbursement to essentially pay yourself back for that purchase. So there's a couple ways to look at it with regards to how to utilize financial aid for books and supplies.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Oh, great questions. Don't tell the first group, but you were much more, even though you won't turn your cameras on, you asked a lot better questions.
Can you turn your cameras on for a minute? Give a wave. Do we know you're here?
It's fine. Some people don't want to. I don't know if you're at work or whatever. But
Oh, there's Heather. Hi, Crystal, Jill. Wonderful, wonderful. Hi, Carrie. Thank you all. I know you're busy, so you don't have to, but it's nice to see everyone's faces. So hi, Heather. Great. I think we're good.
Fantastic.
Thank you again,
Well, again,
Anthony.
like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. But again, a very nice holiday season, hopefully for all of you, and best of wishes for your spring semester.
Awesome. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you for your time.